Over the following days, a peculiar scene repeatedly appeared in my mind. I imagined myself sitting in a public place and suddenly realizing that Anita Moorjani was beside me. In the scene, I walked over, held up her book and asked, "Are you Anita Moorjani?" I wasn't deliberately visualizing this. I wasn't trying to manifest anything. The scene simply kept returning to me. The next day, while traveling on public transport, I could almost feel that Anita was physically close to me. I looked around the train, but she wasn't there. The afternoon of the following day, I went to a coffee shop near my apartment in Discovery Bay on Lantau Island, where the Hong Kong airport is. I sat down, opened my computer and began writing. Then a woman's voice caught my attention. At the next table directly in front of me, there were 3 people who looked to be of Indian heritage. One woman had her back partly turned towards me and was talking about her publicist. I immediately wondered whether she was Anita Moorjani. But I thought, no way, it couldn't possibly be her. As I looked at her from behind, I could see a distinguishing feature on her right cheek. Fortunately, I had her book dying to be with me in my computer bag. I quietly opened it to the author photograph. Sure enough, the feature was in exactly the same place as on this Indian woman. But I felt too embarrassed to interrupt their conversation and return to writing on my computer. Then the next thing I knew, the Indian man who was sitting at the table suddenly stood up, walked over to my table and asked, "Is that book any good?" "Yes," I replied, and then I just said it. "Is that Anita with you?" He affirmed that it was indeed Anita Moorjani. The man was Anita's husband, Danny, and they invited me to join them. We talked for about 20 minutes and I found Anita to be as warm and genuine as her book suggested. Anita and Danny commented that the kind of coincidence I had just experienced was so common in their experience, they no longer considered them remarkable. But the strange connections didn't end there. I learned that Anita and Danny also lived in Discovery Bay, where I lived. Even more remarkably, we discovered that several years earlier, we had all lived at the same time in the same tiny village in Hong Kong's new territories. The village contained only a few hundred people, and we had lived at opposite ends of it. They even knew several of my friends. Yet we never met there, as far as I could recall. After our chat, we shared contact details and said goodbye. The following evening, still excited by the event, I wrote a post about our meeting on my old blog. At around 5 o'clock the next morning, while sleeping, I had a short but vivid dream. In this dream, I saw my friend Doug standing in front of a giant earth, or image of the earth, and he was looking down as if from a spacecraft. And you can see this is actually similar to what is on the homepage of my old blog. Now, beside him in this dream, though, I saw a vertical bar of white light beside him, and it suddenly began shooting upwards. I intuitively understood that the bar represented traffic coming to my blog. In the dream, Doug looked at the bar of energy and said to me, "This is because of something you wrote." I awoke immediately. Later that day, I checked my blog post about my meeting with Anita. Now, a normal post at that time would receive 10 or 20 views during its first 24 hours. This one had already received about 400, and it eventually attracted more than 2,000 views. I later found out that Anita had shared the link on social media. Yet the interesting thing is that she had shared it about 6 hours after my dream. I know because I contacted her to tell her about this. So my dream had somehow anticipated the increased attention my blog post was going to receive a few hours later. This experience touches upon what I call integrated intelligence, the capacity to combine rational thought with deeper intuitive ways of knowing. It rests upon the possibility that mind is not completely confined to the brain. It may be able to access information across distances and perhaps even across time. That brings us to synchronicity. Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung described synchronicity as an acausal connecting principle. This is where an inner experience and an external event become linked through meaning, even though no conventional chain of cause and effect connects them. In my case, the recurring mental image of meeting Anita was followed by an almost exact physical encounter. Then my dream appeared to anticipate the sudden attention my blog would receive. Some people suggested that I had willed the meeting into existence through the law of attraction. Now, I don't believe that is what happened, for I made no deliberate attempt to create it. My interpretation is that I was sensing an important event that was already approaching in time. In some strange way, the future meeting was casting a shadow backwards through time.